Hello, everybody, and welcome to Church at Home with Rachel, Tuesday, the 3rd of October. Glad to see you. I've been reading a book and doing a book study with some folks in Wainwright, and it's on the Universal Christ by Richard Rohr. And it's got me thinking a lot about lots of different things, but one thing that, not just directly from the book, but something I read part of the book and then it jumped up and sort of bit me in the butt. And the way I've been thinking about things lately is what does it mean when somebody says to me, here, put it in Jesus' hands. So a number of times, I'm a worrier. Some of you know that already. I worry about things, and I mull them over. And sometimes, in mulling them over, especially if you do so in the vacuum of your own office, your own space, the problem can get bigger and bigger. You can worry it into like an actual worry ball. Like it gets more and more twisted until it doesn't. There's no way to figure out how to unworry it. If that makes sense. And so many times over the years, I have heard people say to me and to others, put it in Jesus' hands. Just put it in Jesus' hands. And it's like, you know what? People said it to me, and I'm like, yeah, I'll put this in Jesus' hands. Go away. What do you mean put it in Jesus' hands? If I could put it down and stop worrying about it, I would. Who wants to worry? Well, some of us do like to worry. It maybe isn't that we're comfortable with worrying, but because it's a habit, even if it's an uncomfortable habit, we stick with it. But I've been thinking a lot about that whole putting it in Jesus' hands. Not so much the ability to let go of something and not think about it, but realizing that if we put something down or put something in Jesus' hands. So let me clarify here. I'm Christian. I believe in Jesus. I believe in God. And I couldn't get through my life, my days, my moments sometimes without a heavy reliance on the relationship that I have with Jesus. I rely on my husband to love me and to take care of me and to protect me and to feed me. He's the cook in the family and all of those things. And I acknowledge that. He is this incredible person, that he's an important part of my relationship in my life. And I rely on him for so many things, and vice versa. I rely on Jesus for many things as well. So if you don't, that's okay. I don't think that the message I'm trying to get across today is completely, only listen if you're Christian. I think it's really when I'm talking about putting something in Jesus' hands, it's like letting it go. And I don't mean letting it go into the universe and God will take care of it. When it comes back to you, it's fixed. Or if it comes, like setting says something free, and if it comes back, it's yours. It's not what I like. Ugh, bad greeting cards. What I'm talking about is actually putting something in someone else's hands, like physically picking up your coffee and putting it in someone else's hands. You see, when I'm holding on to something, whether it's a worry or a concern or a prayer or a new idea or a thought, I can get pretty, obsessed with it. Like I've my mug here. Okay, so I've got a million mugs. This is one I got when I was in the States, the Bass Pro Shop, the granddaddy of all Bass Pro Shops in Springfield, Missouri. And I love wolves. So there's my mug I bought. So wanted a really big cup of tea today. So I made myself this mug. Now I'm looking at this mug and I can see it here. Now the beauty of the camera is I can see this side too, but I can't see this side. And I can't see this side because I can only see what I'm looking at directly or what the camera looks at. If I put this mug down and I give it to somebody, say, okay, so say you were sitting across from me, if I gave you that mug, I could ask you, can you turn it this way for me? Can you hold it that way? You could help me to get a different perspective on my mug. And right now, the way I'm looking at it, I can see inside the lip of the mug, it says, remember, we all live downstream. If I hold my mug this way, I can't see it. So perspective, right? So I got thinking about this, and the phrase, the sentence, everything changes when we place it in Jesus' hands, popped into my head. And it's true. For me, it is true. When I'm worried about something, when I'm worrying, like I'm gnawing away at something, it's driving me crazy, keep me up at night, putting it in Jesus' hand does change it for me. It helps to relieve the stress. It helps me to know that I'm not in this by myself. But something else significant happens, and I just started noticing this last week or so, that when I place something in Jesus' hands, I'm given that different perspective. Someone else is holding on to it. For one thing, the other person has got the weight of it in their hands. So I'm not having to worry about dropping it and breaking it or spilling it, my tea. someone else holding on to it, in my case, Jesus holding on to it, allows me to relax and know that the responsibility, it's my mug, it's my tea, it's my responsibility. But in this moment, the responsibility is shared. Someone else is carrying the weight of it. And it allows me then to stand there. If Jesus was standing here, I imagine God must absolutely like just cackle at some of the examples I use. But so if Jesus was standing in front of me holding my mug, I could ask him, just okay, stand still and let me walk around you. Let me see my mug from all the different perspectives. Let me peer down into it and say, oh, okay, it's half gone. I need more. Let me come up and look underneath it and see, like, is there a mess on the bottom? Did I remember to wash it, the mug? Have I spilled it and there's a ring of tea in the bottom? I can look at the nuances of how the light looks at it. I can consider, I can smell it. I can reach down and smell the tea without having to worry about knocking it over because it's me and I do it all the time on a klutz. Allowing Jesus to hold on to something like as silly as a mug, tea, allows me a completely different perspective. It allows me time. It allows me to be able to step back from it and say, okay, yeah, I can see that. It also allows me to step back from it and say, do I want that? Do I really still want that cup of tea? It's good. It's tasty. It's gotten kind of cold. Maybe when I take it back, I should stick it in the microwave, or maybe I should pour it out and start all over with coffee. The idea being, though, that I have the opportunity to take a step back, to gain some perspective, to allow myself to say, is that tea important to me? Is whatever it is that I've given to Jesus to hold in his hands, is it important enough for me to take it back at all? And I'm not going to put a percentage on it, but many, many times in my life, when I've allowed myself to give it to Jesus, or even to give it to a friend or a colleague to say, I'm going nuts. Like I'm swirling around in my head here and I can't stop thinking about this. I'm going to ask you to take this. I'm going to ask you to pray about it. Or I'm going to ask you to call me in a day and we'll talk about it then. In the meantime, I'm not going to think about it. By allowing them to hang on to it for me, it allows me the opportunity to have that space to say, listen, is this important enough to worry about? Is this important enough to do something about? Is that concern something I even want to be concerned about? Can I let it go? Can I ask Jesus to just pitch it in the trash? Can I ask him to put it on the shelf or put it in a cupboard or lock it in a drawer for me for a while? Is this something that is so important that I need to take it back? And if I need to take it back, how will I handle it differently? I know it seems like a really ridiculous analogy, but sometimes putting something in someone else's hands, and for me, for Christians, putting something in Jesus' hands allows us the ability to have some space, to take a deep breath, to get a new perspective, to reconsider what it was we have let go, and determine if we want to take it back, or maybe we want to ask Jesus, before you give it back, is there something that you can do with it? I could give my mug of tea here to Rob and say, hey, Rob, can you stick this in the microwave for me? Or can you get me a different drink? And he can bring it back, and it might be warm. It might be piping hot. It might be hot chocolate. Well, that would be good when it comes back. But I'm trusting him that when he brings it back to me, it's not going to be broken. It's not going to be something worse than what it was. But as a matter of fact, it might even be better. For me, at least in the last couple of weeks, the whole sense of realizing that everything changes when I put it in Jesus' hands is true. And that has helped me to sleep at night. It's helped me to make decisions. It's helping me to remember that I'm not in this thing called life by myself. Even sometimes when it feels like there's nobody around, I have one that I can say, hey, can you hold this for me for just a minute? Maybe for an hour, maybe a day, a week, a month, a year, a lifetime? But can I trust you with this? And the answer, I believe, with Jesus is always absolutely. You can trust me with it. The key is not trying to grab it back. But think about it. If I have a cup of tea and I hand it to Jesus and he's holding on to it and I try to grab it back, I'm going to spill it. If I'm going to trust him with it, I have to trust him with it. Or ask for it back freely and he will give it back. Jesus won't force us into anything, folks. As much as some of those other places, other church channels will tell you, the Jesus that I believe in will never force me into anything I'm not comfortable with, nor will he force anyone else to do something that's uncomfortable. He'll simply give it back to me and say, God bless you, my child. If you need help, I'm still here. So whoever you hand things off to, whether it's a neighbor, a friend, a journal that you write things in, whatever it is, sometimes just remember it's important to take that time to let it go, to place it in someone else's hands that you trust, and let them just hold it while you deal, while you think, while you pray, while you consider, while you try not to worry, or maybe while you worry. But it's important to remember that you don't have to hold everything by yourself all the time. Sometimes, maybe a lot of the time, it's not a bad idea to say, I need help. Can you hold this for me? Have a great day. God bless. And I will see you again tomorrow for Church at Home with Rachel.